Hello YouTube, this is RL coming to you again from my channel, and welcome back to episode 2 of Press Play, a brand new podcast on my channel. And once again, I introduce my good friend CK.
Hello.
Alright, last episode was a lot of fun. Did you have fun?
Oh man, I absolutely love talking about the PlayStation because it is like the bread and butter of my gaming experience. I'm not a big gamer. I don't play much, but when I do, it's the PlayStation.
Yeah, we could have gone on for like an hour. We had to cut it short because we want to have content for a while, but we could have talked for about an hour
Easily.
in an episode. Yeah, so
Easily.
we're just spreading it a little bit over a period of maybe 100 episodes or so. This is a
shoot
series.
for 100.
Yeah, this series is gonna go. It's gonna have some wings because there's so much to talk about. And we love to talk, and that's why I have a YouTube channel. Is one of the reasons is me and CK used to shoot the breeze and talk about movies and video games.
That's right.
And I always say when we'd had this like 2-hour conversation, we should be recording this and putting it somewhere and having people listen to it because it was good stuff. And so yeah, and then my channel became the way it is now. And originally it was just like reviews of pizza.
Yep.
And we did some video game stuff as well.
That's
Talked about open worlds, video games.
Yep.
We talked about Shadow of Colossus.
Yes.
Back before I had my retro life, before it became a retro channel. So that's a little history of my channel for you new guys who are subscribing to my channel. So let's get started with Press Play episode 2, and we're just going to continue on talking about what we talked about last time. There's just so many great games. We could maybe reiterate sometimes. I mean, we might go back and talk about those games again because we didn't get so much more you could talk about.
There's always more.
I didn't even skim the surface of Metal Gear Solid. I said I liked Metal Gear Solid.
Right.
I said I loved Metal Gear Solid. I didn't talk about the reasons why I loved Metal Gear Solid. So I'm going to do that in this episode. I'm going to talk about my love of
Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the two like
big ones.
Big ones.
The first two big ones that I played when I got into PlayStation. So that was like, that hit me hard. That hit me like with a ton of bricks in a good way.
That's
good.
good.
I know, ton of bricks is never a good way, but I mean, for gaming it is. So it hit me really, it got me into the gaming world. And Metal Gear Solid and yeah, Silent Hill. Metal Gear Solid was a phenomenon on the PS1. That white label.
Yep.
It's kind of like the Beatles. It's like the equivalent of the Beatles on a console. You know, that's how big it was.
It was massive. It coming out of the Super Nintendo days, right?
Yeah. No, NES. I don't think
was it NES? Oh, yeah, it was NES. That's right. They didn't do it for the Super.
No, they did not have a Metal Gear
Wow,
Solid
can you believe
Super,
that they didn't even carry that, and then
No.
PlayStation was like, yeah, we're just gonna let's just create
Sony.
this.
I think Sony.
Sony picked it up.
Well, they had a feud with Nintendo, right? They were going to make a console.
That's
They were
well.
working
See
together to make a
now,
console, right?
now, if we have this conversation about Sony
That's a separate podcast.
and Nintendo, that's gonna completely trump anything you want to talk about Metal Gear Solid right now.
Well,
but Metal Gear Solid is a great segue into that.
Okay.
So maybe we should get back to Metal Gear Solid and let's
let's
talk
get
about
back into Metal Gear Solid.
the Super Nintendo. I'm using air quotes here. Super Nintendo. And Sony being like, yeah, no, boys, sorry, we're gonna do our own thing, and cut.
They really shot themselves in the foot. I mean, not that Nintendo did terribly, but Sony really took advantage of it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And they just came out of nowhere and just blew Nintendo and Sega out of the water.
Everybody.
Yeah,
they became the new, like, they were like the Evander Holyfield. They just walked in.
Like, I remember I was just deciding whether I should get the PlayStation, and I touched on it in episode 1, but I didn't really go into detail. I really didn't think much about it. It's a new system.
Yep.
Sony never made video games. It's like, well, I'm going to buy a system that, how do I know it's even going to be good?
That's right.
It's new. They never made video games before. They made games, but they never had a console before.
That's right.
And Sega and Nintendo have been around forever.
Yes.
So I wanted to stay with Sega. But as you know, Saturn went belly up, and I wasn't going to wait for a Dreamcast because I was itching to get at video games again.
Right.
I waited a year, and I could have probably gotten. No, they came out on the PlayStation 2. So the PS1.
Dreamcast, yeah, would have been a while, yeah.
So I would have had to wait a good 2-3 years.
Easily.
So yeah,
Probably
I
more.
was not going to wait that long. So I jumped on the PlayStation bandwagon and never got off of the bandwagon, you know? So Metal Gear Solid, yeah, that was the first experience of a video game and having cutscenes and just like it just was, even though it was so dated to this day, there was no movement in the lips in the cutscenes. It was just so blocky but back then it was awesome. It was pretty damn awesome. It just like the level of detail which you could do, and the communications, and just communicating with the people you're talking to on your what do they call it, codex.
Yep.
And just the conversations. It was like
the conversations itself was really a huge part of that game. You could call up and ask for advice. It was just like there was just so much detail, hiding in boxes and just looking at binoculars in there and 3D elements, and it just was such a revolution for me, going from playing sports games and side scrollers to that. For sure,
it was massive. And so, I loved that game. I played it. I must have finished it like 3 or 4 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe over the years. I mean, not right back to
for
back,
sure.
back to
but
back.
The fact that you continually played it because of that enjoyment.
Any game that I play 2 or 3 times, I love it. Because most of the time I finish a game, it's like, I'm never going to touch it again. I'll play it here and there, but I'm not going to play it again.
Right.
Same thing with Silent Hill. I played that 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
But Silent Hill was really hard because that had like puzzles and stuff that you had to do.
That is
and it was like, those were hard puzzles. That piano puzzle, man. I mean, you don't have any experience with Silent Hill, but that was a hugely difficult puzzle. I remember trying to figure it out with my father, and he was like, we don't know. I think at the time it was like internet was still new, and obviously, oh god, man, I'm dating myself.
You had to buy magazines. A lot of it was
strategy
mags.
I had strategy. I got I still have the Silent Hill strategy guide.
Nice.
The first Silent Hill strategy guide. I mean, I have a few strategy guides from the PlayStation era.
Mm-hmm.
Dino Crisis.
Dino Crisis.
Yeah. And I had, obviously, Fear Effect was so hard. I had to get the strategy guide. Silent Hill for sure. I mean, that's how I figured out the game. I could never pass it. And then, of course, with the internet, then who needs those books anymore?
That's right.
I like to see the video go. But, that Metal Gear Solid, I still holds a real soft spot for that game. And then, I mean, going to Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, I didn't really get into it as much. But then later on, we'll talk about it later episodes. But the first one was amazing. And the second one, I didn't appreciate right away. And a few decades later, I played it again. And actually, it's an amazing game, too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, back then, it was just, at the time, it was like mad at metal. You weren't playing Solid Snake. You were playing Raiden. And he was like this whiny guy. It's like, why am I playing this whiny half-naked guy sometimes? And so one of the levels, he was like walking around nude. It's like, this is not what I signed up for.
That's right. I do remember those. Yeah.
And there was a lot of hate going around back then. But now it's subsided and people don't hate him as much. I think he became cooler in Metal Gear Solid 4 and 5.
Yeah, he had his own game.
And he had his own game.
That's right. Yeah.
And see, so much we could talk about, man. We're skimming the surface here.
Barely skimming.
This is like a microscope.
It was a flyby of the surface. Yes, we haven't even touched it yet.
Haven't even skimmed. We're skimming the surface on a microscopic level.
That's right.
So Metal Gear Solid, huge. That got me into gaming. That was big, and that I actually learned about that game from a magazine, a PlayStation magazine.
Yeah.
And then I just read the review, and I was like, wow, this game's getting some real love, and I had to get it, And that's when I stopped being a sports guy on video games and just kind of went to the action adventure games that were like, cutscenes and stuff. Story-driven games. That really drove the PlayStation 2 era for me. Did I say PlayStation 2?
You did?
I did say PlayStation 2 because that was when it really hit gear.
The PlayStation
really hit its era, because I have a PS4 currently. I don't play as many games as I used to, but I still love those games. But the PS2 era was huge. So, but we're still in the PS1.
We are still in the PS1 era.
So much more to talk about the PS1 era. Yeah. So
my biggest thing was I've always liked racing games, and the thing is, I came through the Super Nintendo era playing a lot of racing games. For those that know, the kind of top games, at least in the Super Nintendo one, was like Top Gear. Top Gear was like the game for me, and I to this day also pick up and play Top Gear and Top Gear the second one, and I think there's a Top Gear 3000 or something like that.
Wow.
I've enjoyed Top Gear. I remember, small segue into the future, on the PS3, this company out of South America created a Top Gear inspired. It was kind of like an homage to the racing games of that era, and they
Okay.
built this one called Horizon Chase. For those that don't know, and those that enjoy Top Gear from the Super Nintendo days, go find Horizon Chase for PlayStation. If you can, I believe you can still find it in the store for 3, and I believe it plays on 4 as well.
And leave a comment below and let us know if you
And leave a
did
comment
that.
below if you played the game, because those games were huge. Gran Turismo, when it came out on the PlayStation, you can forget about every other game that ever came out on the PlayStation at the time when 1 and 2 came out. That is all I played on the PlayStation. That is all I played, period.
Yeah, you're a big racing,
Oh my
big
gosh.
racing game guy. For me, my only experience with racing game on that era was the Gran Turismo on PS2.
Yes.
3. That blew me away.
Man. They
Can't speak.
were all great. And it only kept getting better. I mean, Sony only kept getting better.
Yeah.
That was the great thing about Sony, and to this day, they're still just getting better. Now, it's a little overzealous now, and it's a little bit embellished, but PlayStation original, PlayStation 2, and the PS3 going into that generation were like the transitions into a whole new experience. Like, it built cultures. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I believe, honestly, yeah, there was always PC gamers, the PC Master Race people and all that other stuff.
Yes.
But
Master
when it
Race.
came to consoles, and just before Microsoft popped in with their Xbox, be like, we got tons of money. Hey, look, we have a console too. That's basically just a computer that is reduced to just playing games. Literally, that's all it was.
Yeah.
Sony truly drove a whole culture and generation of console gaming. I'm sorry. They really did. Nintendo people will always be Nintendo people. That's fine. I got nothing against them. Sega people will still be Sega people because of the nostalgia and what they grew up with.
Right.
But Sega's, for lack of a better term, dead in the water. So,
For consoles, they make
For
games.
console.
They make games, but then
and even
there's some
then,
talk about maybe bringing another console, and they might make one, but I doubt it.
yeah,
But nice, I would love it. I would love to see a Sega Genesis. A new Sega.
a new Sega
not Genesis,
console.
a new Sega console.
That would be interesting.
I don't think
in
they can
this
compete.
era,
I don't
no,
think they
I
can
don't think so
compete.
either.
Sony would
Yeah.
be like, ha ha ha, we beat you once. Dreamcast 2.
We beat you to the point where you left the game. You
Yeah.
walked away.
We took you from the competition. And I love Sega, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Sega Genesis is my favorite system from that era. And I would have loved to have continued with Sega if they didn't go belly up with the Saturn.
Yeah,
But they just made some big mistakes.
they
back
make big
then.
mistakes. And then
Sega CD.
the Sega CD and the Saturn truly, unfortunately, didn't do what they needed to do.
No.
But some of the games on those consoles were
32X.
really interesting.
The 32X.
That was the gimmick
add-ons,
thing.
The add-ons.
Yeah.
That's what killed them. Those add-ons. Everyone, they had an add-on, and then the 32X bellied up, so they dropped that.
Yep.
Then the Sega CD, which connected to the Sega
Connected to Genesis.
but
That's
I
right.
think the Slim. I don't think it connected to the Fat.
Yeah, it would have been the 2.
So
or
you had to
whatever.
get the
Yeah.
Slim, and
Yeah.
I had the Fat, so that made me mad. And so that pissed people off. And then then after that, 2 failed add-ons.
Yep.
Then they got the Sega Saturn,
And
and then
that
people were
just didn't
pissed
go anywhere.
already.
Yeah.
And the Sega Saturn came out right after the Genesis, like literally Sega Genesis, Saturn.
Yes.
I think it would have done a lot better.
They were a lot
and
better
also,
instead of going to the CD.
and
yes.
also they stayed 2D. That system was supposed to be one of the best 2D systems on the market.
That's right.
And they changed the specs all of a sudden last second because of Sony PlayStation. Or they knew what was going on, I guess,
That's
with
right.
3D. And they made it into 3D, but it wasn't able
wasn't
to handle
real,
the 3D.
yeah.
So look at the games that you saw, like that played on that system with the hockey games. They just didn't compare. I don't have a lot of experience of all those Saturn games, but there was a lot of you could see the graphical limitations in 3D compared to Sony PlayStation, which is the reason why it didn't do well.
Yeah,
But
they were
2D was-
they were caught in this weird space where
Yeah.
they tried to do the whole peripheral thing like Nintendo was.
Yeah.
Didn't work. And they were trying to keep up with Sony, and it didn't work.
No,
And
they couldn't be themselves. But those add-ons really killed them.
They really killed them.
Because those were they didn't linger. They let it go, and it was just it was almost like an experimental stage.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
unfortunate.
And then that's what killed it. And Dreamcast came out too late.
It's too late.
It was popular, but it was just
Very,
Sony
very popular.
2,
Sony was already
PlayStation 2 at that time was a mega. It was
probably
massive.
still one of the most popular
Yeah.
consoles ever, like
It is
most sold consoles.
It was so many people were looking
Yeah.
forward to that system. It was like a rock star.
Yes.
Like it's still to this day, it is probably one of the most sold consoles. It just blew everything out of the water.
Everything.
everything out of the water. So anyways, we got to get back on track. It's not a Sega Saturn, Sega. Well, we got to talk about
It always comes back to Sony though. But it always comes back to Sony, right? Because Sony triggers these things.
We still have
or Sony is a solution to these things.
We're talking about the Sony not in a vacuum. It has to be talking about other games, other systems in that era, and that just rang in my ear. Anyways, but yeah, so yeah, it's always gonna. We have to talk about those other systems because that's the era that it was in.
That's right.
And if we're talking about it, you encapsulate what it did and how it affected and changed the landscape of gaming. You got to talk about what else was in the gaming market at the time. And Sega Genesis, Sega Saturn, the Sega consoles at that time was the one that took the biggest hit. Nintendo took a hit too.
Nintendo took a hit
because GameCube didn't do very well.
No.
And N64 was popular.
Very popular.
But it wasn't like...
It wasn't 3D.
Well, it was kind of 3D.
Well, that's the thing is they pushed the 64-bit, which was one thing.
Yeah.
But the processors and the GPU, the graphics processors weren't even close. And that's truly where Nintendo was realizing, hey, you know what? We have a niche market. We have family and fun and young stuff. They started to bring in more mature games as they got more into the Wii generation.
Right.
But until then, they really were. They knew what they're focused on the Marios, on the Zeldas, on the franchise stuff.
And that's what kept people coming back.
They were making millions of dollars doing that. Why change the format, right?
For sure.
Sony was like, well, we left that. We are on the opposite side of this coin, and we're a completely different beast. We're looking at more realism. We're looking at story-driven stuff. We're looking at graphics and video processing like no other console has ever seen before.
Oh, yeah.
So...
But that's why Nintendo was able to stick around, because they had those properties. The Marios, the Kirby's, the the Donkey Kongs, the Zelda. Those are huge. They're huge. They were like impactful games, and people wanted those games. And the PlayStation didn't have that. So if you wanted those... And at the time, I was like sort of steered clear from that because I was, more mature. It's like, I don't want to play those games. I don't want to play the kiddie games. I don't want to play the Mario. Later on, as I got a little older, and I started to appreciate those games for nostalgia reasons, of course. But yeah, but Nintendo 64, I mean, the biggest game for that system was the GoldenEye, right? And even,
yes,
GoldenEye.
But
I felt the graphics weren't that great for that. I was playing Medal of Honor, which I thought was
Medal of Honor, yes,
for PS1 that was my first shooter game. Like my first,
like a first-person shooter, the FPS
shooter game. Forgetting what it's called. I don't know what it's called, but yeah, first-person shooter, and that was amazing. And I thought it was better graphics. Look, nothing against GoldenEye; it was a great game. I never played it, but I just felt, graphically, the PlayStation 1 was superior. Even though it was a 64. Great marketing though, calling it the N64 because it was like 16-bit thing. Where that at the time, that's what people talked about, the bits.
That's right. It was all about the bits. 16-bit, 32-bit.
But once it got past 32, no one talks about. PS2 was what, 128-bit? But no one at the time cared. Yeah. At that point, we got past the bits. But then, N64 was smart. They said, well, it's a console that's not CDs, but we're N64 and focusing. That was brilliant.
Sony, Nintendo knows what to do.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Marketing.
That was a great idea because it's sort of like, PlayStation 1 is 32 bits, 64
is 64 bits.
You got to assume that it's better, right? So people make assumptions. But yeah, great system. All those systems were great. But Sony PlayStation 1 was just that much better. Yeah. And that's why.
It was the precursor to the gaming generation. It changed
everything.
The landscape. No, you're right.
We're definitely Sony promoting. Well, it's press play. It's about Sony. So, but look, we're not talking stuff that's not true here. Nothing against those consoles. Everyone loves them.
Not at all.
I love those consoles too. I love Nintendo.
I have them.
Yeah. I have a GameCube still. I didn't play GameCube games when PlayStation 2 came out.
Right.
But I have a GameCube now. I have, the Wii. I never played Wii games back when it came out that much. Yeah. But I got one now. Yeah. So I love those classic old games. I appreciate it more when I got into retro gaming back around 2010. But back in the day, I was like hardcore graphics. Best graphics for the system. Yep. Not computers, but for the game system.
For the game consoles.
Simple,
Sony
easy.
was the answer.
Sony was the answer.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll end it there for episode 2. Yeah. It was a fun episode.
We still got to get to the Silent Hill.
Oh, it's
episode
okay.
3. There's many episodes. We're still good for many stories. Oh, yeah.
I think we're going to have enough content for 100 episodes.
Hands down.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about a little bit of Silent Hill, but I think we'll talk about it in episode 3, and you'll talk about more about games that you like on the PlayStation 1. So we're still on PlayStation 1. Occasionally we'll branch out and talk about a little bit of PS2, here and there, but we're still technically PS1. going in order and eventually branching out. We could always mix it up.
We can always mix it up.
Yeah, we don't have to, like, once we go to PS2, we don't have to say, oh, now we can't talk about PS1. If we come up with some things that we forgot about, because we're not going to remember everything
That's right.
at the time we're talking, we might just do some PS1s once we get to PS2, once we get to PS3. But we'll just, we'll take it, we'll see how it goes.
Take it a step at a time. Sony is Sony, right?
Sony is Sony.
We're going to cover the whole franchise, whether it's games, whether it's stories, whether it's publishers, whether it's peripherals. I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff that came out later on.
What you're talking about. I know what it is. No, there's stuff that I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff about PlayStation.
There's a lot of stuff that even
there's
we
a lot
don't
of games
know.
I don't know. Maybe there'll be games that I didn't even hear about. Because I didn't play every game on the PS1. I certainly missed out on a lot of games. And
there were a lot of games I didn't play either.
Too.
Yes,
but there's a lot of great games on the PS1 and moving forward. On the PS2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Eventually, I'll get to that.
That's right.
All right. So thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we are going to continue with the PlayStation experience here on Press Play.
Yes, looking forward to episode 3. So leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. What's your favorite PlayStation 1 game or any game from the PlayStation era? Let us know in the comments below. Let us know what you think about the games we talked about. And
what you'd like to hear about.
Exactly.
What games you'd like to hear about or what particular elements of the PlayStations, any generation.
And if we had some experience with those games, we might even talk about them.
That's right.
Or look them up and then talk about them, but not pretend like we played it, because I won't mention that. I won't say that.
Well, there's a game that we haven't played. You'll be assured that we will at least play it. We got to give you guys that respect, and we got to give ourselves that experience.
Exactly.
Right.
All right. So that's all for now, and thanks again. And we'll have more retro content in the weeks, months, and years to come. Bye for now.
Ciao, folks.